voice. Now I'll tell you about that. Okay, let's take Q&A. By the way, this was good. It was more than good. It was really good.
Thank you.
Because, I mean, some of these things, the things you pointed out, I'm sure they didn't think would be said, and I certainly didn't. When you're talking about the increases in the customer contact and the page views and so forth. I mean, I don't know about these folks, but, you know, when people come to me with social media, they want me to be on Twitter and they want me to be on Facebook and so forth, and you look up and TeleSpan is listed in all those places, and I never go there. Okay? You know? But when you put it in the way you did, I mean, it makes it different, because I was thinking, okay, how are you going to talk about social media to these people who are interested in conference calls, and, you know, what does that got to do with conference calls? And is it that, as I said, and you're right, it isn't Facebook that did it. I knew it was socialized, and I knew the founders who did that, and I interviewed them. It was a very interesting interview, by the way, how I got to them. But, you know, I thought, you know, is it that the social media people are going to come to our space, which I think they will, by the way.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I'm going to ask that question. But what he said I thought was very interesting is about getting us exposure. You know, I can just see it. Okay. Hi. My name is Elliot Gold, and I run this company called TeleSpan, and I can help you learn how to have a conference call. Hey, dude. Have you seen my page on Facebook? I've got all these people together. Look at what they're talking about. Have you thought about that? Oh, yeah, you can do that. Whoa. Doesn't have to be whoa at the end of it. But it's a completely different way of us marketing and getting the attention of these people. Because, you know, Bob Wise's panel was talking about, you know, what's going to happen out there as these Google people and so forth come in. We just need to be creative, folks. You know, think about what PGI can do. You know, think of the things that we can do to get out there using this media. So, I mean, I don't know about them, and I want to hear from them. But I do have one question, and then if you have a question, raise your hand. I've got two people with mics, and then we're going to come around to you. My question to you is, do we need to think about the social media people coming into our space? And again, I knew it was socialized and it wasn't Facebook, right. But, you know, they got 500 million regular people. Should we be worried about the social media people coming into our space and offering group meetings of any type? You can call them whatever you want, conference calls, video conferences, whatever. Should we worry about it? Tell the audience.
It depends. If you continue to be reactive to what's going on with technology, then yeah. Mm-hmm. If you start being proactive and you start looking at, okay, there's all these things out here, how do we incorporate these into what we're already doing? Then no. I mean, that puts you on the front line.
Interesting. Got a question right there.
Just interested in the tools you'd recommend to measure how you're doing, like HubSpot and those kind of things. Anything you particularly recommend?
It depends on your budget. I mean, there's definitely free tools from Google Analytics. You know, if money doesn't matter, Radiant 6 is awesome. I mean, it's one of the most robust kind of industry standard for measuring and tracking things. There's another free tool is called Social Mention, which will bring up latest things. For our clients, we set up Google Alerts and at least Social Mention. Yeah.
Question over here.
Yes.
Hey, wait till he gets the mic. By the way, I have plenty of time for Q&A because the only thing that's coming after this is a boring talk by me, and then you'll have to wait for me to stop talking to go get drunk. I'm sorry, to drink.
What about some of the newer location-based social media things like Foursquare? Do you see business applications for them?
Yeah.
Explain that. I don't know what that is.
Foursquare is so you go with your smartphone and you go into bar, eatery, store, and then you can check in. And so for companies that have brick and mortar locations where you're trying to attract customers, what a lot of people have done is, you give them some kind of reward. Like for the person who checked in the most, you become the mayor of that location. And so, there's coffee companies will give the mayor a free Starbucks coffee or whatever it may be. There's a company called Shopkick, there's a company called Shopkick, which they're partnering with a lot of the big box brands, Macy's, Blockbuster, and trying to make the offline in-store experience more interactive. And so you get points and rewards for just walking into a store because, if you're a retailer, it's so much better to get them in your store because then they're not price comparing online and looking for the cheapest deal. It's more impulse buying. So there's thousands of applications, and Foursquare is one of those examples of a great business model that Facebook set up, Facebook Places, which is trying to compete with them, and so Foursquare is now trying to reinvent the way that they're doing things. And it changes daily, so where does it go? Nobody knows.
Boy, the mind whirls with a bunch of ideas of what we could do with that. I just see it. We got a question there.
Well, what are the rules for stalking your kids on Facebook?
That's probably dependent on your relationship with your kids. Kind of an interesting statistic I saw the other day was that 80% of infants have some form of presence on social networks. Thank God that that wasn't YouTube wasn't around when I was a baby, because I don't want potential employer being like, oh yeah, I was just watching this cute video of you learning how to go on the potty. And so those are things to consider for any parents out there.
For those of you who think you can track your kids using any technology, let me tell you a quick story. We have a question coming in there for a second, but let me tell you a quick story. There were a couple of things that Shirley and I were fairly adamant about. When the kids were growing up, I'm Jewish. When the kids were growing up, we'd have seders, they'd have wine. No matter how old they were, they could have wine, because I wanted them to realize that it was no big deal. So, because we didn't want them to be alcoholics, and we didn't want them to be smokers. So, in my garage, as Jerry knows, I raised my kids rebuilding cars, and so we would be in the garage, and we were working on the cars, and I noticed that in one of the cars, there were crushed cigarettes. And I knew that one of my sons was smoking, even though we couldn't stop him. And I went after him. I said, Daniel, Daniel, I know I can't stop you smoking, but why are you putting the crushed cigarettes in Nick's ashtray? That's just not fair. Dad, what? Those aren't my cigarettes. Those are Nick's. So here I was. I thought I was controlling Nick. And Nick was quietly smoking. And he did it up at my Cub Scout camps, by the way. The other thing is, we thought that we had raised them and we had all sorts of ways of watching and making sure that they weren't drinking. And we would come back, we'd be on a trip, and we'd come back and the house would be spotless. And one day one of my neighbors came over and just said, I am sick and tired of picking up all these empty beer cans on your lawn and all the broken bottles. I said, what are you talking about? He says, every time you go on a trip. And I had my neighbors looking. And then we went up onto my son's wall and saw the photo collage of our bathtub filled with ice and bottles of beer. So when you talk about tracking your kids using Facebook, and you won't win, folks. You can try it. All right, we had a question. Where'd the microphone go? I forgot. Here we go.
Okay, so
pick up the mic to yourself. So we can.
At the risk of being slightly controversial, and perhaps having to stand by myself at the cocktail hour for the next